What's up, everybody? My name is Robert Heck, and today we will be talking about Jeffrey Dahmer. For those of you who don't know who he is, or was, he was a very well-known serial killer back in the 1970s through the 1980s. So why don't we dive deeper? Let's go, y'all. So why don't we start it off by talking about his usual routines for when he would kill. First, he would convince young homosexual males to join him at his apartment with the promise of cash for pictures. Then he would slip in sleeping pills into their drinks, making them unconscious. Then he would strangle and perform sexual acts with their bodies. And then he would cut up their bodies into pieces so it's easier to store. Jeffrey Dahmer had a few close calls before he was eventually caught, one of which was when he was dealing with a 14-year-old boy. He used the same routine as usual, but this time he left to go purchase beer after giving the child the sleeping pills. The young boy then woke up from the sleeping pills and ran out of there as fast as he could. His neighbors, seeing the young boy fleeing the apartment, called the police. But by the time the cops got there, Dahmer was already by the 14-year-old's side. He claimed that the two of them were dating and living together. This was enough to convince the police that nothing really happened here, which confuses me. And the cops failed to check Dahmer's criminal record and Dahmer's bedroom, which had a 3-day decomposing body there, which really stinks, by the way. And as soon as the cops left, Dahmer killed the 14-year-old boy. One day, Dahmer got a 32-year-old man named Tracy Edwards to come over for pictures. Dahmer, for some reason, didn't use his usual technique here. He instead handcuffed and threatened the man with a knife. The man responded by punching and hitting Dahmer, which then gave him time to flee. He fled to a cop car nearby and told the cops everything that had happened. They weren't so sure at first, so they wanted to go back to see for themselves. Once they were back there, they asked Dahmer's permission to search his place. Dahmer surprisingly said yes, and they found pictures of victims, and they found body parts, and they found decomposed body parts and human skulls, and finally, Jeffrey Dahmer was arrested. Jeffrey Dahmer was charged with multiple counts of murder. He cooperated fully with law enforcement. He admitted to killing 17 men. Through searches, law enforcement officers found body parts of 11 victims, and Dahmer is said to have eaten some of them. For his sentencing, the main topic between experts was whether Dahmer was sane, insane, or had a mental illness. Some experts were saying that he was perfectly sane because of how concise and calculated his crimes were. Yet some experts, like Dr. Friedman and Dr. Palermo, were very sympathetic to Dahmer, thinking that he had a mental illness. Yet the jury voted that Dahmer was perfectly sane, so he was charged with 15 counts of murder. For Dahmer's last statement, he said, "I know my time in prison will be terrible, but I deserve whatever I get because of what I have done. Thank you." His story ended on November 28, 1994, at the Columbia Correctional Institution, where Dahmer was beaten to death with a pipe by Christopher Scarver. His story ended on November 28, 1994, at the Columbia Correctional Institution, where he was beaten to death by Christopher Scarver. We could really use Dahmer's case to self-reflect on the criminal justice system and ourselves. Number 1, never drink to solve problems. He started drinking because his parents were fighting non-stop. This solved nothing. He got kicked out from the army, plus he couldn't keep a job for a long period of time. It was never helpful for him. 2, law enforcement should do a better job of paying attention to witness claims. Dahmer's neighbor kept calling the FBI and the police the day the 14-year-old's body was found, saying that that's the same kid who they saw him with the night before. No one did a thing about that. That is something that we can fix. Thank you so much for watching this video. Hope you learned something.